Chodesh Tov to everyone. Today is Rosh Chodesh Iyar, the first day of Rosh Chodesh Iyar. Tomorrow, Shabbat, is the second day of Rosh Chodesh Iyar. Please remember that. And this short Dvar Torah is being recorded on Friday morning. Hopefully, we'll get a little bit more sun. It's a little dreary this morning, but hopefully, during the course of the next few days, we'll see some more light, both atmospherically and in our lives as well. I want to wish everyone a wonderful Shabbat, and I want to wish everyone a wonderful month, a month of hopefully continuing positive. I hope that we hear more positive news, and I also want to give everyone a chizuk, support and strength, and blessings for the best experience, the resilience, and everything for you and your families. And I want to encourage everyone, and if anyone needs anything specific, if you need to reach out to some of our volunteers or to reach out directly to me, please feel free to contact us and to contact me. So this coming Shabbat, we start getting very knee-deep into the laws of Tumah v'Torah, the laws of ritual purity and impurity. And we get into the complex laws where the Torah creates a system. It imposes on the physical reality certain teguvot, certain reactions that we, as a halachic system, that the halachic system and the Torah reflects about the fact that our confrontation with death and our desire to highlight life, and the idea that certain tum'ot, specifically in these sections, we deal with what's called tumot hayotzot min haguf, situations of life force that leaves the body, secretions, realities, biology that leave the body and that create the body, and that the Torah reacts to them and makes a statement, a symbolic statement, that those statuses create a reality that we need to recognize, and that they reflect the tension between the forces of life and the forces of decay and the forces of death. And we want to make a statement that we affirm life. And Tumah v'Tohara, as I've spoken many times in the pulpit, is about that recognition of the liminal qualities and the recognition of death and life. And we affirm life and we create Torah. And the Mikdash, the place of most holiness, is a place which is supposed to be ultimately symbolic of the desire for life. And therefore, Tumat Meit, someone comes into contact with the dead body, you create a status. It's not a bad thing, it's a status. And the status means that we are outside of the Mikdash, hopefully yearning to return to the Mikdash, yearning to return to the Mikdash. In fact, many of the commentaries note that many of the korbanot that are brought by the yoledet, by the woman who has given birth, and that life force has left her body and creates a status of tum'ah. And the halacha of the mitzorah, when the mitzorah wants to enter back into the Beit HaMikdash, into the precincts of holiness, they're very similar. They both involve a bird. They both involve the birds, which are, and in the case of the mitzorah, one of the birds is sent out, is let go, to be able to go back to freedom. And so too, in a certain sense, one of the korbanot of the isha, of the woman, is the korban of desire of the yonah, of the dove. And in the Torah, always, the Torah talks about the tzipor as returning to its nest, the tzipor dror, the free bird, the bird who wants to return to its ultimate home. And it's the symbol that we want to return ultimately to Kedusha. We want to return back to the Beit HaMikdash. And certainly we feel we want to return back to our normal lives. We want to return back to the Beit HaKnesset. We want to return and seek and yearn God. I want to just add one comment. At the beginning of the parasha, it talks about the fact that the status of the woman who gives birth, the Torah decides to remind us of the mitzvah of Brit Milah. The Torah decides to remind us of Ubeyom Hashmini Yimol B'sar Or Lato. On the eighth day, the Torah reminds that if you have a male child, that you must circumcise the child. And in fact, the rabbis learn from this pasuk specifically that it is insistent that it must be on the eighth day if everyone is healthy and it's possible to do it. And even on Shabbat, one engages in the Brit Milah. And the symbolism of the eighth day of the Brit Milah for a male child has always been discussed. As part of it is the idea that 7 days are the days of creation. 7 days is a complete unit. The baby boy has been in the world for 7 days, and now, after the normal, so to speak, pattern, after the existence of the world, we now add to the world, we add Kedusha. After the universal aspect of the human being, we now enter into covenant with God through the Brit Milah, symbolic of the covenant that God made with Abraham in the foreskin, in the reproductive organ, the organ that represents continuity for the future of procreation in the male. And therefore, we have this mitzvah of Brit Milah on the eighth day, after the normal cycle, after the world is created, after the human being is created. On the eighth day, we add Kedusha. We add another layer beyond the universalism of each person. We also add our special connection to God, the Kedusha, the holiness. And I just would add, based on a Hasidic insight, that it's interesting. The Sifat Emet notes, I rarely quote Gematria, but he notes a very sweet idea in this vein, which I would like to add something to as well. He notes this idea of Brit, the word Brit, Bet Resh Yud Taf, actually leads. If you count it, if you count the numbers in Gematria, it is actually 612. Brit, the Taf is 400, the Resh is 200, the Yud is 10, and the Bet is 2. And so we reach 612. And he says if you add Brit Milah, which of course it's a play on words, Milah of course means the circumcision, but it also means the word. So Brit Milah, you add Brit and the word, you have 613. And so he says that there's a symbolism here of that the Brit Milah, the covenant of Milah, is the introduction, is the first stage to total Taryag mitzvot, the baby. Symbolically, this is the first step in creation of the covenantal relationship, and eventually it's going to grow into the full flourishing of the Taryag mitzvot, of the 613 mitzvot and the covenant with God. So in a certain sense, and that's what Abraham represents, and that's what all those very famous midrashim that many of us may have studied, that Avraham kept the entire Torah, which again doesn't mean literally necessarily, but it means that the rabbis portrayed Abraham as the beginning of the process that eventually flowered into the multifaceted, variated, complex system that we know as Torah. But you see that Abraham, before there was the entirety of the Torah, already entered into a relationship with God. So on the one hand, Brit Milah is after the normal cycle of 1 week of life of creation, but it also represents something beforehand, before the entirety of the beginning of our covenantal relationship with God has fully flourished. And in fact, the Sfat Emet uses beautiful language. U'lachein nitan la'Avraham mitzvat milah kodem matan Torah, meirov hishtokekuto lehitkarev el Hashem yitbarach. So Brit Milah was given to Abraham as a symbol because of his desire to connect to God. And so he receives a kind of whetting of the appetite, of reflection that he wants to connect to God. Am Yisrael, the world is not yet ready. There is no Am Yisrael fully. And the world is not ready for the full revelation. But God gives him, so to speak, a first taste that begins the process, the desire to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And in a certain sense, we are in a place of that as well. We're in a place of tremendous desire to return. We're not yet ready as a society. We're not yet ready as a community. It's still We still have a lot of work to do in terms of fighting and flattening the curve and doing all the things that we can to protect ourselves and our loved ones and our community and our state and our city and our county. Um, but we have a desire. And part of that desire, in addition to returning to normal life, is also the desire to continue to connect to God and to our community and to our Torah. And so, what we're doing now, so to speak, there's a certain hishtokekut, there's a certain desire that we should act on within the limits. We should find ways of connecting. We should find ways of feeling that hishtokekut, that desire, that it's manifest in positive, creative, spiritual ways. And I want to bless everyone this Shabbat and this month that we are able to translate that hishtokekut, that desire, that yearning, in whatever way we can, in our learning, in our tefillah, in our chesed, in our volunteerism, whatever we can do, that it translates in a positive and safe way, but in a way that reflects that Brit Milah. We are not yet able to fully practice the way that we want, the way that we are used to, the way that we think it should be, the way that we were used to being, but hopefully that hishtokekut, that desire remains in us and it fuels the fire. It burns in us deeply and connects us to Torah and mitzvot. Again, Shabbat Shalom and all the best to everyone and their families, and Chodesh Tov as we enter this month, which is a month of Tkuma, a month of the restoration. We remember the restoration of the Jewish people to the land of Israel, Medinat Israel, a lot of very powerful moments in Jewish history during this month, which I hope you'll all take advantage of various programs, as well as do some of your own research and your own learning and your own connection. Shabbat Shalom.